Aloha. Our morning devotion is entitled Love Lights the Way. It's an invitation for us to love until our very last breath. Please join me in an ancient awakening prayer. E puli kako. Oh God, may all beings live with death over their left shoulder and kindness at the center of their heart. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. Amen. Aloha kakakiaka. My name is Caroline Miura, and I serve as a Spiritual and Bereavement Care Coordinator for Kauai Hospice. When I was fresh out of seminary, serving a church, the chaplain at the Catholic hospital was Sister Mary Ann. She took me under her wing and we supported each other's ministries. The one question we focused on each time we were together was, what was the moment closest to Christ since we last met? Once she told me about a baby who had died of SIDS. She shared how she sat with the grieving mom who cradled and rocked her baby for hours in the chapel. At one point, between sobs, the woman choked out the words, "I don't know how to leave this hospital without my baby." Sister Mary Ann said, "Maybe you're not ready to leave yet." A bit later, the woman said she didn't know how to tell her husband, the baby's daddy, who was away on business. Sister Mary Ann told her she would be with her when she did feel ready to make the call. Mostly though, they sat in silence. The young mom crying outwardly, the old nun praying inwardly. That moment when Sister Mary Ann felt closest to Christ has stayed in my heart for 33 years. Our morning psalm mentions God is near to all who call, Psalm 145. Well, I've got news for you. Called or not, God is always present. Our psalmist declares how generation after generation stands in awe of the greatness and goodness of God's work, each one telling stories of God's mighty acts. The verses that speak to my heart are these. The Lord is good to all, and his compassion is over all that he has made. Verse 9. The Lord upholds all who are falling and raises up all who are bowed down. Verse 14. And of course, verse 18. The Lord is near to all who call on him. Given these pandemic times, now is the time to hear now even more how God's presence has been alive and well throughout all our struggles. For me, it's become clearer. Life is all about love. Even in the midst of death, which is always with us, love lights the way. The co-founder of the Zen Hospice Project, Frank Ostaseski, shares the wisdom gleaned in his career being with those who are dying in his book, The 5 Invitations. He offers us a guide to how living with death teaches us how to live better. The 5 invitations are: number 1, don't wait. Catholic priest Henry Nouwen was known to have said, the best preparation for death is a life well lived. Speaking of death, Irish poet, author, and also priest John O'Donoghue said, a deathbed is such a special place. It's sacred. A deathbed is more like an altar than a bed. Knowing God is near and dear to all, how God's love shines on all, this morning we can ask ourselves, how can we, as God's loving family, also aspire to inspire before we too expire? In hospice, we encourage others to have inspiring talks with their loved ones who are close to death. We ask patients, what are the most important things for you now? What events have impacted you the most? Your regrets or secrets still to be revealed in the light of God's ever-expansive love? Any advice to pass on or apologies to offer so forgiveness can be extended? Any gratitudes to voice or goodbyes to utter? In the Old Testament scriptures, patriarchs on their deathbeds had a practice of blessing their eldest son. At hospice, we encourage our patients to bless their loved ones as well with a hope, a wish, a prayer, or a blessing before they die. A few examples that have touched my heart are a former 442nd soldier dictated a simple mahalo card to be given after his death to his wife. It expressed his deep gratitude for her loving him through his symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, even before people knew what PTSD was. Another man wrote a card to be read on his daughter's approaching wedding day when it became clear he would not be there to walk her down the aisle. One dad wrote to his 11-year-old daughter, "Ku'u ipo, if you're reading this, Daddy's so sorry that I'm not there to protect you from all the dangers of the world. Daddy's so sorry that no matter what I have done, I could not make your wish for Mom and I to be back together again. I'm sorry that I'm not there to see you graduate, get married, and become a beautiful young woman. Remember, my sweetheart, Daddy loves you." Friends, given a life well lived is the best preparation for death, and a deathbed is more like an altar than a bed, doesn't that also make the dining room table a possible altar? Or playtime, or the nighttime rituals we use to tuck our loved ones into bed, also altars? Take a moment to review your regular routines and see if you can recognize the holy altars where moments closest to Christ occur day in and day out, knowing God is near and dear to all, both now and forever. Be inspired to share your moments closest to Christ with others. Don't wait. Frank's second invitation is welcome everything, push nothing away. In welcoming everything, we don't have to like what's arising. The word welcome confronts us. It asks us to temporarily suspend our usual rush to judgment to simply be open to what is happening. Our task is to give careful attention to what is showing up. To welcome everything is an act of love. The 13th century Sufi poet Rumi wrote, "Every morning is a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond." When we welcome everything and push nothing away, love guides us. Our last three invitations are, number 3, bring your whole self to the experience. In other words, be present. I have learned we don't need history with others to establish intimacy in the present. We simply need to show up with our whole selves, that's when authentic, loving encounters happen. Number 4, find a place of rest in the middle of things. Be the eye of the storm, the calm space in the center of all the swirling chaos and churning dramas surrounding us. Recall the psalmist's encouragement to be still and know that I am God. I tell myself, I am the sweet spot. This helps me to relax and release all that I cannot fix or change. And lastly, number 5, cultivate don't know mind. Each of us is a spark of the divine. 2 Timothy 1:6 says, I remind you to rekindle the gift of God within you. When we do this, we approach life with curiosity and openness. Death midwife Sarah Kerr has this advice when there's an expected death. She says, when someone dies, the first thing to do is nothing. Take a deep breath and be present to the magnitude of the moment. At the moment they take their last breath, there's an incredible sacredness in the space. The veil between the worlds opens. Be present in the moments after the death, and it's an incredible gift to yourself and to the person who's just died. She says if you keep a calm space in the room, they're released in a more beautiful way. It's a service to both sides of the veil. Frank Ostaszewski has found that as people come closer to death, only 2 questions really matter to them. Am I loved? And did I love well? St. Paul talks about this love in his letters. He reminds us the only thing that's real is love. So let's take poet Rumi's advice. He also said, with life as short as a half-taken breath, don't plant anything but love. Here in the United Church of Christ, we thankfully affirm God is still speaking. Let's listen more wholeheartedly to all that is true, beautiful, and good, knowing God is always near and dear to one and all. Amen.